can't be goofing off, talking on the cell phone, those type of things. The next one, stealing from family. The obvious stealing from family that I've dealt with in Ontario, failing to pay child support, identity theft within someone's own family. We've had sons and daughters take their parents' credit card and misuse them without their permission, contributing to the delinquency. We've just this week arrested a lady who had her 13-year-old daughter with her. She put the items in the purse, gave the purse to her daughter, and they walked out the door together. And we charged her with several things, one of those being contributing to the delinquency of a minor. So those are the obvious things that we would see in stealing from the family. But today, one of the things I wanted to touch base on was the not so obvious. And the little clicker here just seems to have a little bit of a delay. It's probably like me, it's been up for too long. Lack of relationship is what I'm looking for. There's three areas here. Stealing from the family. As parents, in Proverbs it teaches us to train a child where he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. So we as parents have a responsibility to teach our children and develop that relationship. And I see a lot of times just in Ontario where, just like the lady that takes her 13-year-old daughter shoplifting, I see it in the schools when they're not paying attention in class, or they're disruptive, or they're committing their own crimes. And we find out that the parents have had children's services called many times. We just see it all too often. So one of today's instructions is that we need to train children the way they should go. Another lack of relationship is children themselves. Colossians says that children obey your parents, and everything for this pleases the Lord. I didn't obey my mom every time when I was younger, and she still doesn't know some of the stuff I did. And that's interesting. Just thanks, Mom, for coming. I appreciate you. We have a little family reunion today. My brother is obviously on the soundboard, who goes to the church as well, and then my younger half-brother is coming from Columbus with his new wife and soon-to-be child. So we've got the brothers are here today. So as children, we need to obey our parents and everything, for this pleases the Lord. The other part of the lack of relationship is siblings. Not necessarily the brothers that I have here today, but in Matthew 18, Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother when he sins against me? Up to 7 times? And Jesus answered, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. So we have we're stealing from our family if we harbor anger, if we don't forgive our brothers and sisters, and it's not just the siblings within the family. That was one of the 2 points that I wanted to bring out in terms of stealing today. Because we are family. I did the village people joke, so I just did a regular we are family picture. This is the personal testimony time. This is not where Adam pats himself on the back. This is to show that this sermon illustrated to me where I'm lacking in the family. Typical 7-day week has 168 hours. Does anybody here feel that they could not possibly squeeze anything more into their schedule? I mean, honestly. Take a look at this. I even left a few things out. You'll either say I'm a bad father after this, or tell me to go to another church. All right, trying to break out some of the things that I do. If you include the 40 hours of work, the travel time, the overtime, and special details like working the movie theater or the mall or some of those things, about 52 hours. So that leaves me 116 hours. I got to sleep and eat at some point, so I figured around 10 hours a day between sleeping and meals and preparing meals is about 70 hours. So that only leaves me now 46 hours. Small group, church-related activities, a soundboard for a week takes up about 4 hours. So that leaves me 42. College and homework. Monday and Wednesday night, I just finished classes, but this past quarter I had a Monday and Wednesday night class. Homework, 3 essay papers, research at the library, and so forth, average about 6 hours a week. My homegrown hobbies that probably irritate Shannon, but I do signs and design. She works about 10 to 12 hours here at the church, but me working some of those things allows her to stay home and raise the children. So not only do I have the 52 hours, I've got about, on average, 14 hours a week, which is about 2 hours a day of different signs and banners and things that we've done. So that leaves me 22 hours. Police related. Within my job, I'm on the hostage negotiation team, which I carry a pager, get called out occasionally. The IT guy, computers, email, just apparently since I knew how to check my email when I started, the chief said, hey, you're the IT guy. Shannon knows I get phone calls at 4 in the morning when the dispatcher can't do something on the computer because it has a corrupted file, or the lieutenant can't do something. I am the union representative for 12 patrolmen, and 2 of them just got laid off, so this past probably 2 months has been a considerable amount of time for me to fight with the mayor and the city council, and I don't know if any of you read the paper, don't believe what you see on the blogs, but I've been very outspoken on behalf of the patrolman unit. So that takes about 10 hours a week, and hopefully that'll go down a little bit. Typical home ownership: mowing the yard, fixing the gutters, picking up the dead animals. Probably about 4 hours a week total, so that leaves me with 8 hours. I'm on the class of 1991 reunion, which I've done the last 2 times. We've got one coming up in 2 years. I'd say about an hour a week. I'm responding to emails, Facebook, new people are coming in, people are emailing me new addresses and so forth. It may not seem like a lot, but 1 hour a week leaves me 7 hours. Soccer, whether it's upwards or school-related, awards, banquets, recitals, band, I'm not complaining, but I'm showing you that probably 1 hour a day of some type of activity, because we have the 4 kids, leaves me 0 hours for the week. And I've left out a few things. So does anybody believe that I have a full schedule? Now, what do you say to that? All right, here's what I'm planning for me to take care of that list. Learn to say no. My mother gave me this trait. Someone walks up and, can you do this? Can you do this? For sure. I've got to learn to say no and prioritize. Is this important to the family that's doing whatever this activity is? Does it benefit the family or me or God? Some of the things that we've tried to do, family nights, whether it's a movie at home or going out to dinner. Campfires, whether it's a little fire in your backyard, as long as you have hot dogs, you're okay. Going on trips. One of the things Shannon needs to do for me is get me away from the computer. We can go on trips, whether it's an overnight trip or even a vacation that we've got coming up, that pulls me away from the computer. I've got a BlackBerry, so I can check on my email. But these are things that I'm going to try to do. College is over for now. I've got 1 more class to complete my 2-year degree. I dropped out of Bible college. Most of those credits did transfer for the criminal justice degree, so I've got 1 class away. So hopefully the college will drop. This summer we won't have as much soccer and school-related items. So hopefully a lot of that will open up for them. The last thing is stealing from God. Stealing from work, stealing from family, stealing from God. The obvious is tithing. In Luke 11, woe to you Pharisees, because you give God 1/10 of your mint to ruin all other kinds of garden herbs, but you neglect justice and the love of God. You should have practiced the latter without leaving the former undone. Some people say that the New Testament is silent on tithing, and that means that we don't have to give 10% anymore. I feel this verse, among others, contradicts that. I think it's actually more than 10%, and I'm guilty of not giving 10%. That's something that I need to personally work on, but that's the obvious. In Acts 5, the one verse that I have today, I'm going to pull a TJ and say that it's page number 733, I believe, for Acts, 773 in your Pew Bible, for Acts 5. It's not necessarily on tithing, but I thought it was a fitting passage. Acts 5, the beginning of the first verse, Ananias and Sapphira. I don't know if you can read it on the screen there, but now a man named Ananias, together with his wife Sapphira, also sold a piece of property. With his wife's full knowledge, he kept back part of the money for himself, but brought the rest and put it at the apostles' feet. Then Peter said, Ananias, how is it that Satan has so filled your heart that you have lied to the Holy Spirit and have kept for yourself some of the money you received for the land? Didn't it belong to you before it was sold? And after it was sold, wasn't the money at your disposal? What made you think of doing such a thing? You have not lied to men, but to God. When Ananias heard this, he fell down and died, and great fear seized all who heard what had happened. Then the young men came forward, wrapped up his body, and carried him out and buried him. About 3 hours later, his wife came in. Not knowing what had happened, Peter asked her, tell me, is this the piece you and Ananias got for the, or is this the price you and Ananias got for the? Yes, she said, that is the price. Peter said to her, how could you agree to test the Spirit of the Lord? Look, the feet of the men who buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out also. At that moment she fell down at his feet and died. Then the young men came in, and finding her dead, carried her out and buried her beside her husband. Great fear seized the whole church and all who heard about these events. I would imagine if somebody died during offering, that would probably increase the offering for next time. And I'm not asking for that to happen because I'd probably be the first to go. The not so obvious is not using talents. Matthew 25, for everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. We know the parable of the talents. Try to make a jump with me. New Testament talent obviously equals money. 2009, think of it as gifts. If we're stealing from God, we're not stealing money necessarily, but think of the gifts that each of you have and that I have, and that we may or may not be using them for God. This is another personal testimony, not to pat myself on the back. It's more of a, man, you're a bad father. June of 91, graduate high school. If some of you remember, I was baptized here in this church at about age 14. Around age 15, I walked the streets of Lexington knocking on doors, getting people to sign a petition against the movie Last Temptation of Christ. Pro-life, did a lot of activities up through high school, went to Bible, graduated high school. Married the church secretary, not the church secretary at the time, but that was 2 months later. A month after that, I started at Cincinnati Bible College. She went to the University of Cincinnati. So you can see in a short period of time, you get out of high school, you get married, you move, so you're out on your own, you're in a big city that you don't know. That brought on its own problems. But this period of time, I was very on fire. Chris Monda did a lot better than I did. I thought he did 10 times better than I ever did at age 16 standing up here. But I was really on fire at the time. 91 through 93, while I was in college, I was youth minister at Linden Church of Christ, which was in Columbus. And 12, 13, 14 kids, building relationships like Scott does. But during this time, for whatever reason, whether it was the stress of being in college and driving to Columbus from Cincinnati every weekend, my own personal life, just all these things, it began to wear me down, arguing with kids about, well, why do we need to go to church, and what about the Jehovah's Witnesses, and what about atheists, and can you go to heaven if you don't believe in God, and just all these things. And then I had a kid that acted like me and was very disruptive in class, and that wore me down. And later on in life, that kid called me back and said, hey, I know I was probably the worst kid in class, but I go to church now, I got rid of the bad friends, and it was actually an uplifting moment. But during this time, was getting hardened, fighting the spiritual battles. So in 93, Shannon graduated with a 2-year degree. I dropped out of college and came back. From 93 to 97, I left that blank because that's what I did. I did nothing. Laid around, worked odd jobs. At one point around 97, I did a resume. Single line in Word, probably a 10-point typeface. And I could put a year in a line, a year in a line. And I had a full sheet of paper of all the odd jobs and different things that I had done, which I'm not proud of, but I've been in Ontario Police for 6 years. It's the longest job I've ever had. So. But from 93 to 97, I did absolutely nothing. I was burnt out. I was mad at God. I didn't blaspheme. I mean, I knew he still existed. Didn't go to church. Just didn't do anything. None of my gifts went towards the church. 98 to 2000, we started going to Ontario Christian Church. After attending there for a while, they put me into the soundboard because I had the technical background, but that's all I did. I didn't help lead classes, I didn't serve, I didn't do anything other than the soundboard, and then went home after church. 2001, and this is where the Wilsons come in. I could remember looking back, and Morgan was getting older at this point in 2001. She would have been 4, maybe 5 years old, starting school. And I remember Jerry Wilson telling me one time that typically, not in every case, but typically a family should attend the church that's closest to their house. For example, I shouldn't drive all the way to Shelby or Ashland to go to a Church of Christ. Certain circumstances, that's fine. I'm not saying you can't do that. But we kept asking ourselves, why are we driving all the way to Ontario when our daughter goes to Lexington, our twins are going to start going to Lexington, the church is right around the corner, and we could benefit our community. let the Ontario people benefit the Ontario church. So we switched to Lexington. But again, I didn't do anything. Came to church, sat in the pew, and went home. Eventually, TJ asked me to do the soundboard because he knew I dated in Ontario. Jerry asked me to lead small group. And slowly but surely, going towards 2009, I'm doing more into the church. I'm not perfect. I could do more. But part of the things I wanted to share with you today was, what gifts do you have? For me personally, what I should not deny God is my graphics ability, doing signs and banners for the church, soundboard, computer tech, leading small groups, transporting kids, including mine, going to camp. There's a ton of things that we can do. Maybe you can't do any of those things, but there's other things that we could do that would share our talents and gifts with God. And that leads into the solution for not stealing from God. Pray for awareness. Ask God to show you what gifts you have. Be a minister of God. I know we have male ministers here. I'm not asking for the women to stand up here and preach. I'm asking all of us to go out and minister to our neighbors, to our families, whether it's even singing up here. Camp, Upwards, VBS, God's always looking for volunteers. I should do more of that. Outreach into the community, the Harmony House, a lot of the projects that we do here at the church and missions. We've got several kids here that are in the missions program. In summary, stealing from work, family, and God, it's a call to action to say that of anybody in this building, I'm guilty. I should give more financially to the church. I should give more of my talent to the church. I think 2009 has been an awakening for me from the past probably 15 years. I don't know why I was mad at God. I can't explain it. But at this point, we pray and end the service. Heavenly Father, I humbly come before you to confess in front of the congregation that I'm lacking in family, I'm lacking in giving to the church financially, I'm lacking when it comes to you, Lord. I should give more of my talents. Help each of us, Lord, be aware of our gifts and what we can do. And some of us are already giving well beyond our means, and some of us want to reach out and help, and we don't know how. Lord, just give us the courage to reach out and talk to somebody and say, hey, help me find out what my gifts are and what I can do for the church. I ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Thanks, Adam. I just wanted to